I remember the end of my first life with a clarity that still feels like a shard of ice in my gut. For 3 years I had been married to Chloe, the woman for whom I had sacrificed my legs. It was a sacrifice she allowed her friends and family to mock me for endlessly. When I finally confronted her about the constant stream of insults, she had rubbed her forehead with an air of pure impatience, as if I were a child complaining about a scraped knee. "They're just stating facts, Alex," she'd said. "Besides, I never asked you to save me. Nobody asked if I wanted that." In that single moment, all the youthful admiration and the years of devotion I held for her crumbled into bitter ash. That night, a cold resolve settled over me. I crushed a handful of sleeping pills into a fine powder and stirred them into the glass of warm milk she liked before bed. Once she was deeply asleep, I went to work. I dragged her from the bed, and with a grim determination I began to cut off her legs. I held her tight as she inevitably woke up, screaming in agony against the towel I had stuffed in her mouth. Her muffled screams were a symphony to my ruined soul. When the horrific task was done, I cradled her as she fell into a fitful, pain-induced sleep. I didn't expect to wake up. I had prepared a charcoal fire, ready to follow her into the void. But I did open my eyes. And when I did, I was not in the smoke-filled room of our bitter end, but back in a time 3 years prior, just before the accident that had destroyed my life. Chloe is really something else, sticking with a cripple for 3 years. You wouldn't understand, brother. The voice was muffled, but the sneering tone was unmistakable. I stood outside the hotel room, my hands clenched into white-knuckled fists. "Maybe Chloe's got some special kink, you know? A thing for a cripple in bed, haha." Another voice chimed in. "I say Alex is the one scheming," a third voice added. The one I recognized as Mark, Chloe's brother. "Using one leg to tie Chloe down for life." A wave of cruel laughter echoed from behind the door. I waited, my jaw tight, until the laughter finally subsided. Chloe's low voice came through, a faint note of surprise in it. "All right, that's enough from you guys." "No way," the first voice said. "You're not actually into that cripple, are you?" There was a pause. I held my breath. "I mean, I don't have a special kink," Chloe said, her voice laced with an annoyance that felt like a physical blow. "Having to face a cripple every single day? It's just annoying. If it weren't for what happened 3 years ago, what do you think I'd be doing here?" Just then, the door swung open. Everyone inside stared at me. Their faces held a mixture of mockery and a thin veneer of sympathy, but no one looked surprised to see me. Chloe's expression flickered with panic and a touch of guilt before hardening. She strode over, her voice sharp with blame. "You know your own situation. What are you doing here?" I sat silently in my wheelchair and met her gaze, holding up my phone. The screen displayed a text message from her number, sent an hour ago. It said she had had too much to drink and needed me to come and pick her up. She pushed me into the room, closing her eyes and letting out an exasperated sigh. "Are you satisfied now?" The man who had mocked me most viciously raised his hand with a smirk. "Sorry, Alex. We were just joking around. We wanted to see how much you really cared for Chloe." He explained that they had used her phone to send the message as a little test, a prank just to prove the depths of my love for her. Their condescension was a thick, suffocating blanket. I looked at Chloe, whose averted gaze told me everything I needed to know. She had been aware of their plan all along. "I didn't think you would actually show up," she said, reading my expression and rubbing her forehead helplessly. "Think about it. Even if I drink too much, I have friends who can drive, or I can call a service. Anyone could take me home. What can you possibly do?" Her eyes drifted down to my legs. What could I do? I could picture it clearly, getting the text, rushing out in my wheelchair, probably bothering the taxi driver to lift me and my chair into the car. Looking back on it now, I realized how utterly foolish I had been, rushing headlong into a trap designed to make me the punchline of their cruel joke. "Since nothing's wrong, I'm leaving," I said, my voice flat. I lowered my head and began to wheel myself out of the room. As I reached the doorway, one of them stretched out a leg, blocking my path. "Alex, don't leave so soon. Come on, have a drink with us." He held out a glass. I'm allergic to alcohol, a fact Chloe knew very well. I looked at her again, searching for any sign of support, any flicker of loyalty. She chose silence, her face unreadable as she stood before her watchful friends. I silently reached out and took the glass from his hand. "Aha! That's the Alex we know!" someone cheered. But the cheer was cut short by a gasp as I flung the contents of the glass directly into the man's face. "What are you doing?" he sputtered, wiping alcohol from his eyes. I switched my wheelchair to its electric mode and rolled it forward mercilessly, running over the foot that had blocked my way. Behind me, voices erupted in curses and outrage. I ignored them, wheeling myself out and graciously pulling the room door closed behind me. Chloe caught up to me in the hallway, her voice a furious hiss. "Alex, don't overdo it. They're my friends." She reached out to grab my arm, but I swatted her hand away. "They're your friends and I'm your husband," I shot back. "You protect your friends, but you stand by and ignore it when your husband is being insulted?" Chloe pursed her lips, a clear sign of a guilty conscience she refused to admit. I suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of pointlessness. I turned my wheelchair and headed for the front door of the hotel. She caught up to me again just as I reached the exit. "They can be blunt," she began, squeezing the words out as if they pained her. "But what they said, it's the truth." I rubbed my suddenly damp eyes, struggling to keep my voice calm and even. "Let's get a divorce, Chloe." She froze, her expression one of disbelief. "No, no way, I can't divorce you." I looked at her, genuinely puzzled. Why? I had heard her with my own ears. She clearly didn't love me. I used to let myself believe that despite her friends' disapproval, her love for me was real, and that was enough. Hearing her words tonight, I realized just how ridiculous and self-deluding I had been. The night air was cold and biting. Chloe took off her jacket and laid it across my lap. "It's my fault," she murmured, her minty scent surrounding me. "Those were just drunken, silly words. Don't believe them. We are not getting a divorce." I couldn't hold back the tears any longer. She began to push my wheelchair along the bustling street. "I'll take you home," she said softly. She pushed me slowly, lost in her own thoughts, so lost that she didn't notice a bump in the pavement ahead. I spoke up to warn her. She offered a quick apology, and then we were cloaked in silence once more. I finally broke it. "I hope you know," I began, choosing my words carefully, "that if you find this troublesome, if you don't actually love me, we can get a divorce. I've liked you for 10 years, Chloe, but that doesn't mean I have to cling to you." Her voice was sharp, unhappy. "I said we are not divorcing, Alex." I closed my eyes and said nothing more. Memories surged, pulling me back 3 years to the moment the laboratory ceiling had collapsed. I had instinctively shoved Chloe out of the way, saving her life, but taking the full force of the falling debris myself. I was knocked unconscious. That was the day I had planned to finally confess my feelings to her, to get an answer for 7 years of secret, unrequited love. When I woke from the coma, the first thing I saw was Chloe's face, her eyes red and swollen. "Alex, are you insane?" she had asked, her voice trembling. "Why do you interfere in things that aren't your business?" I opened my mouth to reply, but my throat was terribly hoarse. I wanted to tell her it was okay, that I did it because I liked her, and because I felt I owed her a debt. My parents had died when I was young, and without her family's help, my life would have been miserable. I tried to get out of bed to get some water, and it was only then that I realized my legs were completely numb. Guilt deepened in Chloe's eyes. She took my hand. "I'll be your legs, Alex," she had whispered. "Let's get married." I admit, in that moment, I was overwhelmed with happiness. "Okay, Chloe," I managed to say. "Actually, I've liked you for 7 years." She held my hand tightly, but remained silent. I instinctively ignored the hint of reluctance I saw in her eyes. When I woke up the next morning, Chloe was gone. On the nightstand was a glass of hot milk she had left for me, along with a note. "Things have been crazy at work recently. Don't wait up for me for dinner tonight." I took a sip of the milk. It was sweet, but I had never liked sweet milk. A loud clatter from outside the door was followed by a familiar voice yelling, "Bro, good morning!" It was Mark. I sighed deeply. What a pain in the neck. He slung an arm around my shoulders, but his eyes were full of sarcasm. "You're something else, always causing trouble for Chloe. There were several key contacts at yesterday's drinking event that she needed to connect with, and you went and messed it all up for her. What do you plan to do about it, bro?" I looked at Mark calmly. "You can have Chloe divorce me." After the initial thrill of happiness had faded, I had occasionally sensed Chloe's helplessness too. She always kept me at arm's length. Her friends hadn't always been so hostile towards me. I understood now. They were just voicing the thoughts that Chloe herself couldn't bring herself to say. I had suggested divorce more than once, telling her that if this was about repaying a life-saving debt, it was unnecessary. But she never agreed. Mark sneered. "You don't really think my sister isn't divorcing you because she likes you, do you?" He forcefully dragged me into a wheelchair. I struggled, but it was useless. What was a cripple like me going to do? He chuckled in my ear. "Come on, I'll show you something interesting." The interesting thing Mark was referring to was Chloe on a cozy date with another man. Through the large glass window of a romantic restaurant, I saw her tenderly brushing a strand of hair from another man's forehead. The look of love in her eyes was so potent it was almost overflowing. Mark smirked beside me. "See that? That's Ethan. That's who my sister really likes." "I don't get it," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Then why doesn't she divorce me? I'm not the one clinging on." Mark grumbled. "Isn't it because you used saving her as leverage against my sister? If she divorces you, what would people think of her? They'd call her an ungrateful person. Stop pretending to be so generous. You planned all of this." I couldn't understand why everyone seemed to believe that saving Chloe was some sort of calculated, manipulative move on my part. I had only lost my legs, whereas she had supposedly lost her freedom. The people inside were too absorbed in each other to notice me standing not far from their window. I smiled grimly, wheeled myself closer, and knocked gently on the glass. Mark was caught off guard. "What are you doing?" he asked, stunned. It was almost funny. He had brought me here, apparently wanting me to just sulk in silent misery. He wasn't going to stop me now. The two people inside noticed me. Surprise and panic flashed across their faces. Chloe quickly appeared in front of me. "Alex, let me explain," she stammered, not knowing what to say. She glanced disapprovingly at her brother. "Who let you bring him here?" Mark just shrugged. "I'm just looking out for my true brother-in-law. You two are the ones with the history." I was dumbfounded. History? Back when I was about to confess my feelings, I had subtly asked Chloe if she had a boyfriend. Her answer had been a clear no. Otherwise, I never would have mustered up the courage. "Just go home," Chloe scolded Mark briefly, then tried to call a cab for me. Wait, I said, raising a hand to stop her. I want to chat with the gentleman inside. Alex? Chloe frowned, clearly unhappy. I gently took her hand. You'd better listen to me. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to start yelling homewrecker right here in the street. I was a disabled man. We had faced enough judgmental stares over the years to become immune to them. The ones who would truly lose face in this situation would be her and her lover. Chloe's frown deepened, but her concern for the man inside was obvious. A moment later, she was wheeling me into the restaurant. So, you must be Chloe's husband? The one who saved her? The man, Ethan, seemed to know who I was. He rested his head on his hand and smiled at me. Hi, I'm Ethan, Chloe's first love. They acted as if they weren't being malicious, yet every word was dripping with it. Chloe, take Mark and go sit over there. I want to chat with Alex, Ethan said with an air of authority. In just a few sentences, he had taken control. Chloe and Mark sat at a nearby table, watching us worriedly. Ethan casually stirred his coffee. You know, if it weren't for you, I'd be the one married to Chloe. I didn't know, I told him honestly. I've never seen you in her circle of friends. I had no idea she even had a first love. Ethan lifted his head, his expression somewhat sorrowful. We dated secretly because of my family. Chloe said her family wouldn't approve of me. Only Mark quietly supported us. For 2 whole years we dated in secret. Right before the accident, we were finally ready to confess to our families. Sadly, you got in the way. No wonder Mark had been so bitter when he found out I was marrying Chloe. But how was any of this my fault? I had repeatedly confirmed with her that she was single. It was she who chose to hide her relationship and later chose to marry me. Ethan saw the confusion on my face and chuckled. Curious why she chose to marry you? He asked. I looked up at him, instinctively knowing that whatever he was about to say wouldn't be good. It's because she found your secret love diary, Alex. His tone was resentful. Of all the times, she discovered it right after you lost your legs and fell into a coma, in front of her parents. And you say it wasn't intentional, Alex? My mind went blank. So she had read my diary. Chloe wanted to pretend she hadn't seen it, Ethan continued, but her mother happened to see it first. The elders meant well. They watched you grow up. Our families were long-time friends. So that day, Chloe's mom asked her, "Do you like Alex?" They thought if both of you had feelings for each other, it would be a good match. Chloe, misunderstanding this as pressure from them, decided then and there, "I'll marry him." She gave up on me and married you under the pressure she thought she was facing. Now I understood. I remembered how I had excitedly poured my heart out to her after learning she wanted to marry me. What a complete joke. She could divorce me now, but she wouldn't. And that still baffled me. Ethan smirked. Because you're useful. Chloe is at a crucial point in her career. If people found out she dumped her savior, what would they say about her? Alex, you've already made things tough for her once. Don't do it again, okay? With all these plots. Who knows if your parents' fatal accident wasn't just karma? I couldn't hold it in anymore. I threw my hot coffee directly in his face. He could say anything he wanted about me, but he should never have mentioned my deceased parents. Alex, what are you doing? Chloe cried, rushing to stand in front of Ethan. I pointed a shaking finger at him. He insulted my parents. Ethan looked embarrassed. I didn't. I was just explaining our past. He's the one. Chloe glared at me. Apologize. I stared at them both for a long moment. Then I started to laugh. All right. Before I apologize, can I have a word with you? Chloe didn't say anything, which I took as agreement. Come closer. This is something only you should hear. She leaned in, and with all the strength I could muster, I slapped her hard across the face. Let's get a divorce. Chloe's face turned dark with fury. Alex, I told you we can't get divorced. Is keeping your precious reputation that important? I thought. But this time, I wasn't willing to sacrifice my dignity for her any longer. You can wait for the lawsuit then, I said, turning my wheelchair to leave. But she yanked me out of the chair with such force that I fell hard onto the floor. Her eyes were red with rage. Divorce? Who would want you, a cripple, without me? I was stunned. I couldn't believe she had said that. Wasn't I a cripple because of her? Yes, you saved me, and I owe you. Chloe was practically screaming now. Didn't you ever think about the pressure that brought on me? You want a medal for it? I would rather have been the one disabled. Can you even imagine the pressure of owing you my entire life? She was frustrated, oblivious to the fact that I understood that pressure all too well. I'd rather you hadn't saved me at all. I was dumbfounded, humiliated beyond words. The shock and shame were so intense that I lost control of my bladder. Seeing the dark stain spread across my pants, Chloe quickly picked me up and put me back in the wheelchair. Look at you now. What can you possibly do without me? Her disdain was palpable as she covered my lap with her coat. I'll take you back. Think it over. Chloe called a taxi. The driver was a chubby, middle-aged man, and she gave him a little extra tip to push me home. After the ride, he must have sensed I was in a bad mood because he gave me a hang-in-there gesture before leaving. Bro, he said, there's always hope in life. He probably thought I was going to kill myself, but I wouldn't. Not after the text message I had received from a stranger just half an hour ago. It was a screenshot of a chat. Chloe, Alex is dead set on divorcing you. Your loving wife act won't work anymore. But hey, if one road's blocked, find another. Remember Lily? She loves playing with disabled guys. Alex fits the bill. Once he's divorcing you, use this chance to accuse him of cheating. That way you won't be the villain who abandoned her savior. There was more, but it was Chloe's simple reply of, okay, that shattered the last remnants of hope I had. She was ruthless. She blamed me for saving her, yet she was prepared to milk my last ounce of value before discarding me. I don't know who sent me that screenshot, but I owed them my thanks. Alex, I'm back. Chloe returned later that night, reeking of alcohol. She teetered and then crouched before my wheelchair. Sorry, she slurred. I was wrong today. Can we not get a divorce? I looked at her calmly and smiled gently. Sure. Really? I nodded, offering her a cup of hot milk. I was wrong too. Drink this milk, sober up. I'll book tickets to the Maldives for tomorrow. Let's go on a trip, okay? Chloe looked panicked, then hesitated. Tomorrow. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Okay, I smiled, pushing the milk toward her again. The pills worked fast. Chloe passed out just as I had expected. It took me nearly 2 hours to hack her legs off, a difficult and messy task for a man who couldn't walk. She woke up screaming midway through the process, forcing me to gag her with a towel. She shook her head frantically, eyes wide with terror. Don't worry, I remember saying calmly. I'm not going to kill you. I'm just taking your legs. You never seem to value them anyway. She whimpered, probably begging. I slapped the chat screenshot onto her face. She quieted down then, lost to pain and desperation. By dawn, I had finally cut off both her legs. The knife was dull and useless by then. Chloe had fainted and woken up several times. I removed the towel from her mouth once I was done. She barely had any strength left. Enough, she whispered. I stuffed it back in. I wasn't in the mood for any more talk. My epiphany had come too late. My life was already ruined the moment I lost my legs. If she wanted to destroy me completely, I would destroy her first. I lit a coal fire in the room, cradling the whimpering Chloe as she drifted off. It was a satisfying feeling. Taking a monstrous human off the earth felt like a kind of redemption. I didn't expect to wake up again. The familiar tingling sensation in my legs made my eyes fly open. I was reborn. I was back before the accident. I jumped up from my chair, scaring the other guys in the lab. "Hey, you okay?" one of them asked. I looked down at my own 2 legs, strong and whole. I mumbled a few words, the reality slowly sinking in. I was back in my 2nd year of grad school. I had chosen Chloe's major just to be with her, always trying to join her project groups. The accident had forced me to quit. Feeling the power in my legs again made me tremble with excitement. I checked the time. It was May 1st, 2:27 p.m. There were 10 minutes until the ceiling collapsed. 10 minutes until the event that had chained me to a life of misery. Last time I had pushed Chloe away, saving her at the expense of being crushed myself. "Alex, what's wrong?" A hand touched my forehead. It was Chloe. "Do you have a fever? Want me to get you excused from the lab?" I instinctively backed away from her touch. She looked hurt. Our weird exchange caught the attention of others nearby. "Ah, a lover's quarrel?" someone joked. I usually chased after Chloe, who neither accepted nor rejected me outright, so everyone assumed we were a couple. "No," I said quickly, my voice sharp. "She has a boyfriend. We're nothing." In this life, Chloe was nothing but bad luck to me. She looked a bit startled, especially hearing me mention her secret boyfriend. "You," she whispered, lowering her voice so only I could hear. "Is there some misunderstanding between us?" I looked at her, and suddenly I realized what had always been off. Chloe had a boyfriend at the time, but she still acted flirty and receptive to my attention. Even when I had called her out on it in our previous life, she would never admit it. She wanted the thrill of a fling without letting go of the steady, unconditional way I treated her. It turned out the person I once idolized was no good from the very start. "Watch out!" A shout interrupted my thoughts. The ceiling above us began to crack and groan, dust and small pieces of plaster raining down. Just like in my past life, Chloe happened to be standing directly underneath the weakest point. I was standing just on the edge of the falling debris area. Last time, I had lunged forward and pushed her out of harm's way. This time I turned and ran to safety. "Alex!" Chloe called out, her voice filled with incredulity. The next moment, the ceiling came crashing down. I heard her scream, and then silence. Out of a lingering sense of moral obligation, I called 911 for her. The doctor's words were music to my ears. Chloe's legs were done for. She would be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. I barely managed to hold in my laughter. "Alex, why? Why didn't you save me?" Chloe groaned from her hospital bed, her voice hoarse and filled with tears, as if I were the villain in this story. "You could have pushed me away." I tilted my head. "Chloe, quit pretending. I know you're back too." Before we had gotten married, Chloe had never called me by my first name with such familiarity. And just now she had asked why I didn't save her, not why I ran. She knew what I was capable of. A wave of embarrassment spread across her face. She had wanted to take the moral high ground, to guilt-trip me into serving her again. I sat down on the chair beside her bed and gently tapped her unresponsive leg. "Chloe, your legs are gone. Remember what you told me before? You said I begged you to save me. Did anyone ask if I wanted it? You said you'd have rather it been you." I smiled at her. "But you didn't really want that, did you? Well, congratulations on getting what you wanted. You don't have to feel guilty for me anymore. You've only lost your legs, but you're free of any unnecessary burdens." Chloe sat there, stunned, her face a chaotic mix of emotions. "How did I not see you were a psycho before?" "Can't you tell what's just talk?" she said, looking exactly as she did in our past life when she shamelessly claimed she didn't need my help. If I saved her, she blamed me. If I didn't save her, she still blamed me. My anger flared, and I slapped her hard across the face. "You know I'm crazy, and yet you still talk back to me?" I hissed. "Do you want to lose another limb?" At my words, Chloe flinched. So much had happened in such a quick succession, she had almost forgotten how she had met her end last time. "Am I mad?" I continued, my voice low. "I've always hated people like you. At least this time there's no forced connection between us." She struggled to regain some semblance of her pride. 10 minutes later, her father hurried in, looking exhausted. He was out of town on business and couldn't get back right away. The poor guy had to deal with this news all alone. "Don't be too upset," I said, offering a token consolation. "At least she's still alive." In the past life, he had been decent to me, but not overly supportive. He treated me like a son before the wedding, but after a few years, his sympathy couldn't withstand the test of time and Chloe's endless complaints. When her cousins bullied me, he had just looked the other way. "Alex, keep your cool," Chloe anxiously warned, not wanting her father to worry. But now she couldn't even turn over on her own. "Alex," her father said, tearfully clutching my hand. "Her mom and I are so busy. Thank you for being here for Chloe. I know you have feelings for her in this situation." He couldn't continue. I understood what he meant. He was worried Chloe would end up alone, just like he had once worried about me. I spoke up without a moment's hesitation. "Uncle, I only see Chloe as a sister. Plus, she has a boyfriend." Chloe's father looked at her in disbelief. "Is what Alex said true?" Chloe pressed her lips together tightly. She didn't want to admit it so soon, but I had forced her hand. I thoughtfully added, "I already called him. He's on his way. I don't want to be the third wheel breaking them up. I hope you understand." Just as I spoke, Ethan appeared at the door, dressed in a crisp white shirt. He looked shocked and tearful, just like her dad. Her father had met Ethan before, and didn't like him much, since Ethan came from a large family that wasn't as well off, making him unsuitable for his daughter. But now wasn't the time to say much, so he awkwardly excused himself to go get some food. Seeing Ethan, Chloe avoided eye contact. "You shouldn't have called him," she whispered to me. "I can't face him like this." Before she could finish her sentence, a faint yellow stain began to spread across the white hospital sheets. Instinctively, Ethan stepped back, a hint of disgust in his eyes. Chloe saw it, and her pride took a visible hit. Then, her eyes pleaded with me. I remained unmoved. "What, you think I'm going to help with that? Your boyfriend's right here. Isn't that more appropriate?" After dealing with Chloe, I turned to Ethan. "I've heard a bit about your love story. So passionate. It's supposed to last a lifetime, right? If that's the case, you should probably start learning how to care for someone who's disabled." Under my pressure and moral lecturing, Ethan reluctantly helped Chloe to the bathroom, shutting the door a little too hard behind them. I didn't miss the look of resentment on his face, and I grinned inwardly. Last time it was me who had met with misfortune, and they got to bask in their noble, unattainable love, separated by circumstance but holding strong against the pressures of real life. This time the roles were reversed. After explaining a few things to Chloe's father, I left. She had her dad and a boyfriend. There was no need for me to hang around. I went back to my normal life, attending classes as usual. I could walk freely, run freely. The feeling of long-lost freedom was intoxicating. I heard that Chloe wasn't giving up, that she was doing rehab exercises every day, but sadly, nothing was improving. Her dad would message me every now and then, and between the lines, you could feel his disappointment with Ethan. He was basically saying that Ethan wasn't as good at taking care of Chloe as I would have been. Even Chloe tried to reach out to me, but I had blocked her number. 3 months later, I was out eating with some buddies from my research group when I ran into Chloe and her entourage. Ethan was pushing Chloe's wheelchair toward us, and neither of them looked happy. He was busy scolding her and hadn't noticed me yet. "What are you doing here, you useless thing? Trying to embarrass yourself?" he spat. His tone was a stark contrast to the sweet, loving boyfriend from my previous life's memories. But I couldn't blame him for snapping. I had done a bit of digging. It turned out that all that lovey-dovey stuff from Chloe's perspective was just part of Ethan's long-term plan. He came from a rough family and was looking for a well-off woman who wasn't too bright to help him change his fate. Chloe was the perfect match. In my past life, I had blocked his path. In this life, however, she was the one being looked down upon. "I'm useless? Then what am I supposed to do? Don't you think I know what you and your friends say about me?" Chloe said, her face flushed with anger. Ethan sneered. "They called you useless. A woman who's good for nothing. Are they wrong? Look at yourself. You can't even go to the bathroom without my help. What can you do? If it wasn't for escaping my own family, who would want to be with someone like you?" Chloe trembled. "What did you just say?" Ethan ignored her seething gaze. "Had I known taking care of such a useless person was this much of a hassle, I would have picked someone else," he said coldly. "Divorce!" Chloe yelled. So they were already married, even before a proper wedding. I guessed Mark was aware of his sister's situation and hadn't given them much of a choice. Ethan shoved her chair coldly. "Divorce? You think I don't want to? Serving you for 3 months is making me sick? If it wasn't for your damn family, you think I'd marry you?" To see the truth beneath the facade was shocking. But then again, someone like Ethan and someone like Chloe were a perfect fit. I couldn't stop myself from laughing out loud. They finally noticed me. Ethan, seeing I was there, quickly ditched Chloe. "This hot potato is all yours. Perfect timing. Take your sister," he said. During their secret fling, Chloe had always introduced me to Ethan as her brother. He glanced at Chloe indifferently. "I'm going back to the party. Don't mess things up for me." And with that, he walked off without a backward glance, leaving me and Chloe facing each other. She was in the exact same mess I had once been. "Chloe," I said calmly, "remember how your friends used to talk about me?" She turned her head away, her body trembling slightly. "Sorry, I didn't know," I interrupted her. "You knew everything. You just didn't care, not unless it happened to you. But cheer up. You know, Ethan hasn't treated you that badly. He just cursed at you. You didn't end up with old men with quirky hobbies, did you?" I had meant to comfort her with a dose of dark humor, but her face turned ghostly pale. "No, Alex, listen to me. I never meant to hurt you. I had everything planned. The room was set with knockout incense. He would have been out cold before he could do anything. We just had to pretend the next day." She was explaining animatedly until she saw my icy gaze. Actually, back then, I did kind of fall for you," she whispered. "Slap!" I hit her as hard as I could, and then a few more times for good measure. "Alex!" Chloe shrieked in anger, but she was powerless to fight back. I held back my fury, my voice a low growl. "How dare you mention love? Giving me away to other men is love? Letting your friends humiliate me is love too? Your timing is perfect, isn't it? It's not that you love me. You just found yourself useless, fell out with your first love, and now you just want someone who will be wholeheartedly by your side. Can someone as selfish as you even use the word love?" After that day, Chloe didn't reach out to me again. My life got better and better. Occasionally someone would bring her up, mentioning how poorly she was doing. I heard Ethan was decent enough to her when Mark was around, but he beat and cussed at her behind closed doors. Why Chloe took that kind of crap and remained silent was beyond me. Maybe she really did love Ethan. Mark called me a few times, implicitly treating me like a confidant. "That Ethan, I can't believe I thought he was such a kind soul. Turns out he's got a heart of darkness, he'd say. Alex, bro, it would have been so much better if it was you marrying her. I just chuckled. Don't say that. Chloe and I are like siblings. Mark probably pouted on the other end of the phone. You're not actually siblings. You were just raised together for a few years. You don't even share a household register. Alex, why don't you crash the wedding? It's early next month. Hearing him say that, I flinched, a memory sparking. Before Chloe and I got married in the last life, Mark hadn't been so malicious. After we married, he had suddenly changed, growing closer with Ethan. Now Ethan was about to marry Chloe. Could it mean... Casually, I asked Mark, "You don't like..." Before I could finish, I heard immediate denials from the other end. No way! How could I ever like Chloe? A silence hung between us, and then Mark stammered, All right, maybe a little, but she's my sister, it's impossible. So I just want to find her a good brother-in-law. Alex, you sure you won't reconsider my sister? I laughed, brushing him off while secretly saving the recording of our conversation. I'll be there, I said, a thrill of anticipation coiling in my gut. A month later, I showed up at the wedding. As I arrived, Chloe was being pushed out by Ethan to greet the guests. Probably feeling embarrassed, she gritted her teeth. You really had to drag me out here? Ethan smacked her on the back of the head. Keep talking and I'll rip that mouth of yours out. I hadn't expected their relationship to sour so badly, but for them to still go through with the wedding was something else. It was thanks to Chloe's father, who seemed bent on tormenting Ethan. When Chloe was okay, he wouldn't stand for a guy from Ethan's background going near his daughter. But now that Chloe was incapacitated, well-off families naturally wouldn't want their sons marrying her. Chloe's dad, who used to eye me as her future husband, couldn't ask me after Chloe had been so bent on being with Ethan. She was too embarrassed to ask me to take her back now. So, since Ethan's family was all about the money, Chloe's dad just threw a huge sum of cash their way, practically buying Ethan. His parents took the money and happily handed over their son. At first, Ethan was willing to play along and take care of Chloe for the money. But after they were legally married, he realized he had been outright purchased by her family, and her father wasn't going to give him another single dime. Divorce? No way. Wasn't this supposed to be an epic love story? Guess it was more like a locked-in deal. Chloe spotted me from a distance. She watched me, her eyes fixed on my legs, as if she missed them. Her own father was nowhere to be seen, a blatant slap in the face to Ethan. Sitting at the family table, Mark caught my eye and secretly gave me an okay gesture. It was all part of his plan, to air out all the sweet moments between Chloe and me midway through the wedding. According to Mark, Chloe still had feelings for me, and this would supposedly lead her to regret her choice and maybe even call the wedding off on the spot. It would mess up the wedding and humiliate Ethan big time. Of course, Mark conveniently left out the fact that it would also put me in a very awkward position. His scheme was so transparent that I had to play along quietly. Oh, hey, isn't that Chloe's little sidekick? A familiar voice sneered. I turned around and saw Liam, the friend who used to make things so tough for me. Tisk, you've got that look. Can't get over something useless, huh? You got some kind of thing for broken projects? His words were insolent, disrespecting both me and Chloe. Liam, if you don't want to eat, then scram! Chloe appeared beside me without me noticing, yelling at her former friend. Liam sized us both up dismissively. You think you're some big deal? Look at you, pathetic. Feeling sorry for her yet? Well, your dad already took your 12-year-old sister home. Turns out Chloe had a younger sibling. Surprise, surprise. It seemed her dad had finally given up on her completely. As for your uncle, whatever. Liam, get out! Chloe was nearly at her breaking point, but she couldn't get up and hit him. Liam, despite being told off by Chloe, just plopped down in a chair again. Get out! What's your deal now? Ethan came rushing over and gave Chloe's lifeless leg a quick kick. "You don't think you've embarrassed me enough today, huh?" He threw more verbal jabs at her. "Give her a break, man. Show some respect in public," Liam laughed. "Besides, the old flame is here too," he said, glancing my way. I wasn't looking to cause any more drama, but Liam was as low as ever, in this life or the last. I grabbed a bottle of wine from the table and splashed its contents on him, warning him with a cold look. "How you treat Chloe is your business, but you better keep your filth away from me. Otherwise, I don't mind spilling your little secrets, like about that James thing back in the day." Liam was known for hooking people up with clients who had twisted tastes. That James was the one he had tried to set me up with back then. Hearing the name dropped, Liam fell silent fast. "Alex," Chloe choked out my name. "I'm sorry. I had no idea life after being disabled was like this." Her confession was cut off as a giant screen on the stage suddenly lit up. It wasn't a video, but an audio file. Mark's voice, followed by my own, came through the speakers loud and clear for everyone to hear. "Alex, why don't you crash the wedding?" "Mark, you don't have a crush on her or anything, do you?" "No way! How could I possibly like Chloe?" "All right, maybe a little. But she's my sis, dude. No way that could happen. I just want to find her a good guy, you know?" The wedding took an even more chaotic turn. Mike screamed for someone to shut it down, while Ethan lunged at him, starting a fistfight. He cursed as others struggled to pull him away. I couldn't help but marvel at the irony. Amidst the clamor, I slipped away quietly. Behind me, I could still hear Chloe calling my name. The rest I heard from other people later. After Mark's little crush was revealed, his parents raised hell with their sister's family. They thought Chloe must have crossed some line for her own brother's feelings to get all twisted up. Already disappointed in her, the family finally gave up on Chloe entirely. Eric became completely unhinged. His reputation was shattered, and he wanted out of the marriage. But Chloe's family wasn't letting him go. They blamed him for ruining their daughter. If it wasn't for him messing with Chloe's head, they argued, Chloe and I would have been a perfect match. My feelings for her were supposedly deep enough that I would have never ignored her in that accident. Marrying her would have been a noble cause, a path to fame that Chloe's family would have relished. Half a year later, Chloe ended it all, taking Ethan with her. Word was that Ethan had gotten involved with Liam again, secretly handing Chloe over to a creep with sick tastes. Waking up from that ordeal finally broke Chloe mentally. Her cries of regret were mixed with curses on Ethan, saying he deserved to die in misery. In her last, incoherent moments, she wished for another chance to make it right. A chance where she would choose me without hesitation. She hired someone to sneak into her home, swapping out Ethan's vitamins with sleeping pills. While he slept, she set the house ablaze, burning away with him inside. After Chloe passed away, I received a letter. It was from Mark. I figured it was just some empty apology. I didn't even bother opening it. I tossed it straight into the trash. Do it all over again? No way. Life doesn't give second chances to bad people. And even if it did, no matter how many times it repeated, I wouldn't budge for her again. I have clear goals in my life now. I'm only focused on becoming a better version of myself.